Welcome back to Cosmic Comics, where, once again, we're going to be talking about Quasar in Marvel 2-in-1, Volume 1, Issue number 73. And on the cover there, that is the very first Quasar logo. Look at that crazy face. Look at those dinosaurs. Let's do it. Thundra had completed her obligation to report what she could find out about her previous employer, the Nth Command, to Benjamin Grimm, before leaving Earth 616 with Hyperion, formerly of Squadron Sinister. Quasar and Ben are both following up on Thundra's lead by returning to the portion of the subway where she had previously blasted a hole in the wall. The hole has already been patched. Quasar wants to enter the base showing some level of restraint, but the thing smashes right through the wall with a resounding, "It's clobbering time." The battle starts off in our heroes' favor, but that quickly changes once they are swept up in a blast from the Nth projector. For a moment, the two heroes float in a cold, dark void between worlds. I'm not certain that this part of traveling via the Nth projector is ever shown again. It does raise some interesting questions about where this space between worlds might be. Then our heroes are deposited on the side of a river where Ben warns Quasar to watch out for any midgets with long pointy ears asking to turn them into Jedi Knights. The jokes continue as the pair begins to look into the local environment, with Ben insisting that he handle the comedy. The two soon top a ridge where down below can be seen multiple oil wells in a facility that is being built with the help of dinosaurs. As the two assess the situation, 3 vehicles approach from behind. Note that these vehicles are very similar to the ones used by the Nth Command scavengers units. The most obvious difference being that these hold 4 passengers, whereas the scavengers vehicle held 5. Either way, later in the issue, these soldiers are referred to as scavengers. Ben makes short work of one of the 3 vehicles by striking it down with a tree. An awesome surprise is to see that each person on the small vehicle has their own jetpack. This panel has a lot to unpack. We need to remember that Quasar is a character that is still in the development phase. Up to this point, his biggest mainstream appearance has been the Project Pegasus saga. We're going to see limitations to Quasar's abilities and explanations to his powers that don't hold up anymore. The first thing that becomes apparent is that Quasar is using his bands in much the same way the Crusader or the original Marvel Boy did. Instead of stopping the vehicles within a protective bubble as a more developed Quasar eventually will do, he uses the wristbands to create an intense blast of light. Also in this panel, Quasar states that the quantum bands, which he refers to here as Uranian energy bands, draw upon the energy of distant quasars. This is a great idea, but one that won't remain canon once Mark Gruenwald writes up his explanation behind the quantum bands and how and exactly what they are and how they work. Suffice it to say, it is very likely that Wendell Vaughn did think that this was the basis for how his powers work at this time and why he took on the name Quasar. There you go, the origins of a name. Also, there isn't any reason for him to refer to his wristbands as the quantum bands until after he meets Eon. So, for now, the name Uranian energy bands makes sense. We see one of the ships attack Quasar using the same kind of netting they attempted to snare Thundra with. The results are about the same. Quasar uses a couple of energy blasts from his wristbands to tear open the net. Ben is targeted with gas grenades. Quasar rushes in to help and gets hit. These panels once again highlight that Quasar hasn't quite learned how to use his quantum bands yet, as he could have easily scooped Ben away from the gas or created gas mask for them both. Also, he should have been capable of absorbing that blast. Ben escapes the gas by grabbing the flyer as it makes a low pass. He then jumps onto the back where he destroys the engine mounts, causing the small craft to explode. Ben is finally collapsed from the effects of the gas and is picked up by the third skimmer, who returns him to the complex's central structure, the Watchtower. Meanwhile, Quasar is grounded and soon finds himself passing out due to the pain of his wound. As this happens, he is being watched from the grasses and after passing out is rushed by a small group. What we see is a small group of Neanderthal-like primates that speak in a sophisticated tongue. Instead of attacking, these distant relatives of ours load Quasar onto a sling and drag him off into the woods. Once they reach their village, the natives become noticeably more relaxed. They head straight for the hut of the tribal chief. Once there, Quasar wakes up before Chief Tona, and is surprised to be spoken to in English. Tona responds that they were taught English along with many other things by those who have used them, the same ones Quasar recently fought against. Turns out that the Nth Command showed up years ago and began taking oil from the area. Soon Tona's people had been conquered and made to serve as slaves based on a thin promise that someday Tona's people would be showered in riches for their efforts. In secret, Tona and his people have been planning a revolution against their masters, but first they need somebody to lead them. Somebody who could inspire Tona's people more than he himself could do. Somebody with strange powers. Quasar insists that Tona's people will get slaughtered against modern weaponry. Tona insists that everything will be alright because they've got their own weapons, a trained dinosaur legion. Quasar silently wonders, what is going on here? He knows that dinosaurs were extinct before man first appeared, but then again, these guys aren't exactly modern humans. So it appears as though we have an Earth that never experienced an end to the age of Set. Okay, maybe I shouldn't read into all this too much. Back at the village, one of the scavenger units lands to investigate the disappearance of Quasar. The thugs beat a few heads in and make it clear that they see the native peoples of this land as little more than animals. Despite being only a few feet from their prey, the scavengers decide they're wasting their time looking around the village and take off. After witnessing the abuse of the Nth Command firsthand, Quasar agrees to lead Tona's dinosaur army in the attack against the oil facility. Ben Grimm wakes up inside of the watchtower. First, this is a bad idea. If you ever have a superpowered prisoner, don't take him to your central control area. Keep him somewhere else. Far, far away. Heading this oil operation is self-described mercenary, adventurer, and entrepreneur Bennett Pittman. It's finally revealed to Ben that Roxxon Oil is behind the Nth Command. Pittman then explains why the Nth Command targeted Project Pegasus. Its research into alternate energy posed a threat to Roxxon's bottom line. Pittman tells us that he distinguished himself during the years he spent working as a troubleshooter on Roxxon's floating oil rigs, and as a reward he was given the chance to head up the first drilling and refining facility on an alternate Earth. Pittman lays everything out to Ben. They are on an alternate Earth. In the official handbook to the Marvel Universe Deluxe Edition issue number 7, we're told that this is Earth 78411. Home of Devil Dinosaur. All of the equipment used to construct the facility was brought in via various Nth projectors. Roxxon's plan is to invade alternate Earths that have remained within a primitive timeline so that they can exploit the natural resources that have never been mined or drilled for. Instead of having to rely on the limited supply of oil from one Earth, they could potentially supply Earth 616 with oil from an infinite number of Earths. Pittman continues his explanation. After processing, the crude oil moves through a pumping station that is outfitted with a new kind of Nth device, the Nth adapters, which are capable of being left open and provide a one-way directional portal from one reality to the next. Then we learn why Bennett brought Ben to the tower and spilled his guts on this whole operation. He wants Ben to join up with them. Ben politely reminds him that due to the Nth Project attempting to kill him and all of his pals at Project Pegasus, he's not really interested. Foolishly, Pittman gives Ben 30 seconds to change his mind before having his men kill him. As Pittman leaves and the men wait for the clock to wind down, a low rumble slowly gets louder. Soon the soldiers are all staring out the window. Quasar is rolling in and leading the dinosaur cavalry to the rescue. This is so bizarre. The dinosaurs are super effective. They come in and trash the place. Briefly, Only for a single panel do we see Quasar put up a protective barrier against incoming shots, but he hasn't quite learned to absorb their impact, so instead he takes a more offensive approach. As the battle rages below, Quasar decides to check and see if Ben is being held in the command center. One slight error on this page that always looks glaring to me is the missing X in Roxxon on the soldier's helmet. Ben breaks free of his bindings and is fired upon by at least 4 guns that can take down a Stegosaurus at 50 yards, but it's still not enough to slow down the thing. Unfortunately, the knockout gas still has Ben feeling a little bit woozy. But then Quasar bursts onto the scene. As he comes in, he blinds his enemies with a burst of light. How he manages to not blind the thing in the process with this attack is glossed over. Pittman sees that everything is turning south and attempts to escape and inform the Nth Command. We can see in the last panel of the page that Pittman is attempting to reach an Nth projector. Pittman enters the room, sets the controls on the Nth projector for 1, and disappears before Quasar and the thing can reach him. Our heroes attempt to gain control of the Nth projector and are shocked to have it disappear as well. Back at Nth Command, it's explained that there is only 1 Nth projector per site as a safeguard against potential attacks. Pittman assures his co-workers that they've heard the last of those left behind. Quasar and Ben escape the tower by working together. Ben breaks them out, and then Quasar uses his powers to carry Ben to safety. The oil site is a complete disaster. Chief Tona, though, couldn't be happier. His prophecy of waiting for somebody from the other world to lead them to victory had come true. And wouldn't you know, amidst all this destruction, the one thing that didn't get touched was the pumping station. Quasar has an idea that might get them home, but first he needs Ben to turn off the big valve in the corner. One question, who was turning this valve on a normal workday? I mean, the thing is having trouble with it. I'm guessing that this valve must have been designed to be used by dinosaurs. Yeah. Quasar jumps onto the computer, and after a few moments at the controls is capable of changing the outflow location of the Nth adapters from a refinery in New Jersey to the Nth headquarters in Manhattan. Quasar then gets Ben to turn the valve back on, and suddenly the Nth headquarters is getting flooded in light crude. And here it happens. In order to get back home, Quasar encloses himself and Ben into a bubble of air that he uses to pick them both up and ride the flow of oil forward. Using bubbles for containment or protection becomes one of Quasar's signature moves. Our 2 heroes emerge into chaos, where we learn that all of the Nth projectors have been ruined due to the influx of oil. Quasar lets Ben know that he set the controls to cut off the oil after 7 minutes, leaving them approximately 3 minutes of oil flow left. Quasar focuses on taking out the aggressive ones, while Ben tries to save those who are drowning. While creating more debris for people to hold onto, Ben spots Pittman just standing in the oil. We're shown Pittman's inner monologue and see that he's struggling to deal with the full scale of his failure. Quasar has gathered a number of the Nth Command together into a cage, but even then he fears it will be impossible to tie the operation back to the parent company. If only they could find a bunch of those helmets with Roxxon spelled on them. Meanwhile, Pittman has decided to give in to the oil and see suicide as the only way out. Unfortunately for him, the ever-loving blue-eyed thing isn't done with him yet. The flow of oil cuts off as Ben comes over to join Quasar. Ben points out that Roxxon probably could have gotten away with all this if they had treated the natives of Earth 78411 better. Ben takes solace in the fact that even if they didn't manage to take down the big boys behind the curtain today, that at least they showed them that our heroes aren't going to let them take over without a fight. Okay, don't stop the video just yet, because Quasar makes a quick appearance in the next issue of Marvel 2-in-1, and it's a Christmas issue. The part of the issue I want to focus on is the Christmas party. Arriving fashionably late is Wendell Vaughn, who curiously arrives in his civilian clothes and yet is still referred to as Quasar by the Thing. He also has a guest with him. He introduces his date as his fiancée, Janine. This is child psychologist Janine O'Connell, who tended to Wondar, now the Aquarian, during his stay at Project Pegasus. Ben, knowing this, is happy to call the Aquarian over. The embrace between the Aquarian and Janine seems a little too close. To that point, Ben lets Quasar know he better watch out. As for the details about Quasar and Janine's relationship, how did it blossom or end? We're never given those details. I think the engagement is never mentioned again until the letters page of Quasar issue number 15, when reader Mark Norris asks, "Is Quasar going to try to get a hold of his old fiancée, Janine?" The answer was, not soon. And it's obvious why. The fan base, at least from what we're shown on the letters page, had fallen in love with Kayla. But more on that later. If you're really interested in the continuing adventures of Janine, feel free to read the Blue Shield story in Marvel Superheroes Fall Special, where we see she is still working at Project Pegasus. Next time, Quasar makes a guest appearance in the pages of everybody's favorite musical mutant mag, Dazzler. It helps this channel out whenever anybody comments or pushes those buttons below. I'm out.